Hello and welcome to Nikolai's genetics lessons, and today I have prepared two easy multiple choice questions for you. And here is the first question. A process by which pollen formed by one plant's flower is moved to the pistil of another plant's flower is, and we have to choose the correct answer. And I hope everyone would be able to choose the correct answer, which is a process which we call cross-pollination, answer A. And if pollen would be moved to the same plant flower, so would form in one flower and would be transferred to another flower on the same plant, we call self-pollination. But when pollen is produced by one plant and transferred to another plant, we call this cross-pollination. So next question, suppose that in barley plants the allele for tall stalks is dominant over the short stalks and the allele for wide leaves is dominant over thin leaves. What would be the best way to determine the genotype of barley plant with a tall stalk and wide leaves? So as you see, the genotypes of this plant with tall stalk and wide leaves can be different. For example, let's say stalk would be gene A, so genotype can be whether A because we know that it is tall, or it also can be A capital and A small. Both these genotypes would result in tall stalk. And let's say that white leaves would be gene B, would be coded by gene B. Again, whether it can be homozygous dominant or heterozygous. Again, both these genotypes would result in the same phenotype. And of course, different variants are possible. For example, we may have such variant of the genotype and this variant too. So actually 4 different genotypes are possible. So how to find out what genotype of this plant? Actually we have to perform a test cross, and test cross we perform with another plant of the known genotype and phenotype, and such plant have to be homozygous recessive for both genes. So basically we just have to cross with a plant whose genotype is going to be small a and small b. Again, nothing is said in answer C. Perform a test cross with a barley plant that has short stalk and thin leaves. Nothing is said about genotype of this plant, but again, because we know that stalk is short, we instantly know that for the gene A, this plant have to be homozygous recessive. And as for the thin leaves, we also know that in order to have thin leaves, this plant have to be homozygous recessive for the gene B. And now if we do a test cross, we can predict certain results. For example, if plant unknown plant or plant of unknown genotype would be homozygous dominant, of course 100% of the progeny would be heterozygous and would have a tall stalk. And again, if a plant would have homozygous dominant, would be homozygous dominant for the gene B, which specifies that leaves have to be white, and 100% of the progeny also would have white leaves. So in this case, we can say that unknown plant of unknown genotype would be homozygous dominant for both genes. But if, for example, plant would be heterozygous for the gene A, and if we cross with this plant of the known phenotype and genotype, which is homozygous recessive for both genes, we expect that 50% of the plants would be heterozygous and would show dominant phenotype, but another 50% would be homozygous recessive. So we would know that this unknown genotype actually for the gene A is heterozygous. Again, if we for the second trait also would see segregation of trait like 50% white and 50% narrow leaves, we would know that this plant would be heterozygous for this trait. So this is how we find the genotype of the plant who shows dominant phenotype, but whose genotype we don't know. Again, test cross when we cross one parent of the unknown genotype who shows dominant phenotype with homozygous recessive plant, in this case double homozygous recessive, but again there can be more genes, there can be 3, 4, 5. Each time we have to cross with another plant who is going to be homozygous recessive for all genes of our interest. And this is all for today. Thank you for your attention. Please subscribe for my new videos that I post almost every day, and see you in the next video. Goodbye.